Hey guys, Mitch from Shock Therapy, and today we're going to show you how to install the new lower shock fork on the Polaris RZR Pro R and Polaris RZR Turbo R. Okay guys, so before we jump into the install, we're going to show you some of the tools that you're going to need to actually complete the lower fork install. To start off, we do have a pair of shaft clamps. These are going to be available on our website. Until then, you can get these off of eBay or any online store for fairly cheap. You're definitely going to want these to help hold the shaft into the vise when you're installing it. Next thing, a flathead screwdriver. You're going to need a pick to help get all the Loctite out of the threads on the shaft. A wire brush to also help with the Loctite. You're going to need a torch and then a couple rags. What is involved in the kit when you get this? You're going to have 2 lower shock forks. You're going to have a little bottle of Loctite, and you're going to have a new bump stop that is supplied in the kit as well. So starting off, I do have a shaft that is actually pulled out of the shock. It's very simple with you guys. You're just going to have the complete shock with springs off of it. You'll still be able to clamp around the shaft, install it into a vise, and remove the lower fork. So let's install the shaft clamps. We'll throw it in the vise, and we'll start getting this thing off. So another tip for you too is when you are heating up the lower factory fork, you want to make sure that you are heating around the fork. You're not putting heat onto the shaft necessarily. You want to go in circles. You don't want to have the heat in one spot. That's not going to help heat up the Loctite to help you pull off the lower fork. So just go around in circles. Once you get it nice and warm, there is a special tool to actually pull off the lower fork, but we're going to show you guys how to do it in the garage. Grab your flathead screwdriver and just kind of give it a nice, and it'll pull right off. Make sure not to touch that because that is extremely warm. Now, before you go to remove the bump stop or put the new one on, we're going to clean off the threads really good. We're going to get all that Loctite out of the threads and the part where the shaft is actually going to sit into the newer fork. A couple ways you can do that. You can actually reheat up the threads and kind of melt the Loctite. Use a rag, wipe it off. If that doesn't work, you can grab a pick. You can pick out all the Loctite out of the threads. And then finally, grab your brush and you can actually go around the threads. If you do use the brush, just make sure that you are actually hitting the threads and you're not getting onto the shaft. You don't want to damage the shaft or have any complications there. Once you get all the Loctite off, you can pull the factory bump stop off, set that guy to the side, grab the new one that is supplied in the kit. We're going to go ahead and install that one on. And now we're ready to install the new Shock Therapy fork. So a trick that we do here too is if you set this against where the factory spring retainer would sit kind of in the keyway, if you will, if you set that against the neck down part of the shaft, you can actually make a line right here, the bottom there. That's going to help you when you go to install it to make sure that the new fork is completely seated and set where it exactly needs to be. Once that's marked, we can open up our Loctite here. When you're installing the Loctite, make sure that you are actually getting it onto the threads. And go ahead and thread it on. Grab your screwdriver again, give it a little snug. And what you'll notice with that line is that meets perfectly where the recessed part of the new fork meets. That's going to tell you that that thing is completely seated and you're good to go. Move your bump stop back up. Pull it out. So to explain the bump stop a little bit more to you guys, the reason that we're replacing the factory one with a much shorter one is because of the design of our fork here. So what we're doing is we're actually fixing a problem by having it recessed into the new one. It's actually supporting the shaft a whole lot better than the factory one. If you'll notice, the shaft just sits on here, there's no support around it, and that's where they shear off, that's where they break. Now, by capturing the shaft and supporting it, yes, we are losing a little bit of up travel, but we're combating that by removing a little bit of the bump stop to help you guys not feel any of that. And you can go ahead and repeat that same steps on the opposite side, and your installation is complete.